Today we're going to be talking about grand juries, one of my favorite subjects, because this is the only way that I see lawfully we the people can make the government act properly, and we also could probably change industry at the same time to give ourselves a future like I talked about in the video last time. The institution of a grand jury is of very ancient origins. It goes back many centuries to the early histories of England. It is deeply rooted in Anglo-American tradition, although attempts have been made to trace the institution back to its first existence. It is said that its origin is lost to obscurity. At any rate, the grand jury system is a product of the common law, the civil law making no provisions for a body like the grand jury. It came to this country as a part of the common law. The grand jury was at first a body not only of accusers but of triers as well. But at the time of the settlement of this country, it was an informing and accusing tribunal only. It originated when there raged a conflict between the rights of the subject and the power of the crown. That sounds interesting. It served in England as a barrier between the king and the rights of his subjects, and secured the subject against oppression from unfounded prosecution of the crown. Now, I wonder why I like this topic so much. Request by citizens. Under some constitutional or statutory provisions, a court must convene a grand jury or otherwise submit a matter to grand jury upon the petition of a certain number of persons, and must make an initial determination of the legality of the proposed inquisition. Nevertheless, citizens are not entitled to court-appointed counsel to assist the presenting or calculating a petition to convene a grand jury. Now, I would not petition the courts, as a petition is more or less like a prayer to your higher power, and I don't pray to the courts. I tell them what I need them to do, what I require of them, and I'll get to that here in a minute. Judge's role in qualifying jurors. A judge may use the jury questionnaires to determine if prospective grand jurors meet the statutory qualifications to serve on a grand jury, and then, if necessary, the judge can direct additional questions to the jurors before the jury is sworn. Also, over here it says Jury Selection and Service Act. Under the Jury Selection and Service Act, in the case of a federal grand jury, a person will be deemed qualified to serve on a grand jury unless one of the several enumerated disqualifications applies. So this is for a statutory grand jury. And even in their own law books, and we're going to get to it in a minute, they have at common law grand juries as well. But in a statutory grand jury, it's just like anything else in the statutory game. The whole game's rigged, and it's set up to be played on you, the people. At common law, an alien is disqualified to serve as a grand juror. Under many statutes, grand jurors are required to be citizens of the United States and of the state. Now that's fine with me, because remember how I was talking before, you can be a citizen when you want to be a citizen for some purposes and not for others? Well, this would be a purpose where I could be down with being a citizen for a moment. Now look here. At common law, grand jurors were selected by a sheriff, and the manner of their selection was a matter within his or her discretion. And this, I think, is really, really awesome, because we, as the people of whatever state we live in most state constitutions, you have the right to tell your elected officials what to do. So the sheriff being an elected official, the people can tell him what to do. So if the people want certain grand jurors, then they can demand it of the sheriff, and the sheriff is supposed to do it for them because he's representing them. He's supposed to be representing the interest of the civitas. Here we go. Size of a jury panel. The number of names of prospective grand jurors to be placed in the jury box or on the list or panel depends on the provisions of the governing statutes. And let me just tell you, we don't have any real grand juries in America today because they're all governed by statutes. Number to be summoned. At common law, the sheriff of the county was required to return every session of the peace and every commission of oyer and terminer and of general jail delivery 24 good and lawful men of the county. At present, the number of grand jurors to be summoned is governed by the applicable statute or constitutional provision. In the Constitution, and we are a common law country, and at common law, they say right here, 24 good and lawful men of the county. When the common law, as far as I can go back and research, and it comes from the Magna Carta, but it actually was 25 men, and maybe the sheriff would be the 25th man. But if the sheriff was not the 25th man, then I would say that this book has it wrong. But remember that these books are written for attorneys. They're not written for people like you and me to go and look down and rip apart. They're written for people who have already gone to law school, who have already been programmed at how to look at and read law. It's written for them to look at and read. So here's the way I would suggest pulling together a grand jury. And remember, I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. I'm just speaking about the law. Here's the writ. This is the issuance and return of a writ of venire facias or similar process are required by some authorities for the summoning of a grand jury. Technically, defects in the writ or return usually are not considered fatal to the legality of the grand jury. So, if I were going to do this with people to back me up, of course, I would call it a common law writ of a grand jury. I wouldn't get sucked into using their legalese, venire facias words in your writings. I would just keep it pretty plain and simple. This is what's going on, this is what happened, and we want justice. We, the people, demand justice from the courts, which are the servants of the people. Now, just think about this. We all saw last year how many grand juries did not indict certain officers, but think about this. You can go back and have a grand jury summoned twice. It's not like a regular jury. When you go to court and no court's supposed to be able to question their decision, grand juries can be reconvened for the same trial or the same case as many times until it goes to court as possible. So if the people got together and wrote out their own writs of grand juries and put pressure on the sheriff to go and execute these writs, then, in my opinion, they would have no other choice. But the people have to do it. So if we got all of those people who were out there protesting in the streets on board with this idea, and we started connecting all these little circles, then maybe we could start getting our government to act right. Next time, I'll be going over juries' rights and what they should know before they go and serve on a jury panel. Thank you. Bye-bye.